So a friend shared on their social media something today in the caption of their post, and it was so very relevant to what I've been working on for probably over a year really, and it was the fear of failure and how I had set the bar of impossible perfection. Now, I'd worked on my perfectionist wound, and you know, there's layers to this stuff, but this bar that I had set for myself was impossible to ever reach or to ever aspire to. So I was constantly failing because I couldn't get there, and it was almost like a self-abuse. Like I was proving self-fulfilling prophecy. I was proving to myself that, you know, I wasn't good enough and that I wouldn't be able to reach my goals, that my work wouldn't be validated, that I wouldn't be able to excel in certain areas of life, that I wouldn't be able to do this, I wouldn't be able to do that, because of the fear of failure. And what it was doing, what I noticed, the inner critic and the level of self-abuse that I had developed within was so harsh, it's unbelievable. Like, and you know, it's the ego's way of protecting, because, you know, I didn't want to fail, I didn't want to be hurt, rejected, abandoned, all these wounds that happen. But the ego had developed such a big voice of self-abuse. I mean, I do think that that's one part of recovering from being in an abusive relationship, is that what happens often is that your ego takes on the voice of the abuser. So, you know, you get told over and over and over and over again by someone that you're not good enough, or you're this or that. You know, after 20 years, man, you start believing that shit, or even after a year, you would start believing that stuff. And then what happens is taking risks, pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, pushing towards your goals, you know, it becomes very scary. And the voice of the abuser becomes so loud, of like, yes, you can't do this, you can't do that, you're not good enough, you need to do this, you need to do that. And self-sabotage is real, you know, man. Like, that voice is not truth. And yet I see through that lens a lot of the time. Like, I have to reassure that aspect all the time that it's okay. If that aspect of self is going to be pushed out my comfort zone, trying to push forward in a goal in any area of my life, not only am I triggered, you know, like, this is pushing me, so my fears will be triggered. How that has developed is into that self-abuser. So it isn't just triggered and scared, it is really negative towards self, like really critical, like I said, really quite abusive, very gaslighty, sends me into a spiral of confusion, because, you know, like, I will have maybe like a really good idea or a thought or a feeling, and I want to, whatever it is that's triggered this fear of failure, that being aware of this enables me to be more compassionate, you know, with myself, because even the part of me that is abusing self, you know, it's only doing that because it's scared of the fear of failure. But what I'm trying to say is that it's so dark sometimes that it's really hard to pull yourself out of that, to no longer see through that lens, and to see through the lens of truth. Now, how do you pull yourself out of that? Through riding through the storm, really. Self-awareness, compassion, time, journaling, reflecting. Like, this self-abuser and inner critic I've been working with, God, about 4 or 5 years. Started off as the inner critic and why I did that, and then it developed into looking at the different aspects that would do this. Then it looked into the abusive patterns that I'd taken on from being abused for so long. But just trying to be aware that that's very likely going to happen, you know, when you've experienced any kind of trauma or abuse, is that the ego will take on such a loud, nasty voice because it wants to keep you safe from, you know, say you do push your goals and you do fail. So what if you fail? Like, failure is where, like, growth happens. Failure is where you learn. Like, and I have been learning this through my failures over the past couple of years, and really reflecting on not taking criticism so personally, and not being shutting down when something doesn't go how I wanted it to go. Like, you know, we don't always get what we want. We don't. Like, that's life, and it's about understanding that, but not letting that stop you from going forward and pursuing your goals. Because what's the point of life if you're just going to stand still? Like, and I don't just mean from a self-growth perspective. This can be anything that you want to pursue in life. Like, you know, I've said before, when you've had mental health or trauma and you get to a place of secure stability, like, you've done the work to create a good foundation, like, life is quite stable. You're able to deal with challenges, you're able to deal with emotional reactions and responses, you're able to deal with life, basically. Then what happens is, you know, you want to move up, you want to push forward, and you can't, because that self-abuse is so loud that it is so hard to hear anything else. It's so hard to see yourself clearly. It's so hard to be able to embody your truest self, like, because of that voice being loud. And even if you have the awareness of, like, these are just thoughts, like, this is not truth, it don't stop it being loud. It's like a foghorn in your ear roll of, like, you're so stupid, like, that's not true, you shouldn't do that, why are you doing that, why did you say that, everyone's going to judge you. The words that come out, and they're not even, that's like me being kind to some of the things that my mind tries to process. And that's why it's so important to kind of just be compassionate with yourself, and aware that that stuff is going to happen when you are pushing forward.